right, we're good, and we are in here. Let me just make sure the audio levels are looking good, and they might need a bit of a boost. Alright. Excuse the little interruption. I'm sure I will edit this out in post, but I just want to make sure the audio levels are good. And at the moment, yeah, they're looking better. Let's, how about now? Yeah, that's looking good. Bear with me, guys. 1 second. Alright. This ought to do it. Alright, yeah, good evening. It's a nice Sunday evening here. It's September, of course, 19th, 2021. We're going to get into it with another Icon Underground podcast. This time it's part 2 to the community Photoshop tutorial night. We, of course, covered some much needed skills in, well, not quite Photoshop, GIMP. Yes, the free alternative to Photoshop. Why not use open source freeware type software? GIMP is the way to go. So, let's get into it. What are we going to cover today? What I will do, so we covered obviously the basic Photoshop if you covered the first episode, but today we're going to throw some more advanced ideas for you guys into the mix. Allow me to, I realized I have to screen share, so I'm going to screen share in order to, let's see here. All right, this ought to do it. And all right, so here is how we are. Whoa, don't mind this. So here is what we will do. First things first, we're going to demonstrate what we're working with today. So first thing I will do is, excuse me, go over here to the Icon Underground channel, and you can see I've already posted this image here. And what we'll do is we'll save this image to downloads. And this is the image we're going to work with tonight. And so one of the things I'm going to show you guys is, unlike some of the other images we worked here, for instance, this last one, you can see this uses the default 2D snapshot of the icon, which has like this 3/4 view of the head, right? And so it's suitable for shots like this, where the head is kind of tilted in this angle. But if you can see, what we're working with tonight is more of a dead-on, straight to the face type of shot. This person's looking directly almost at the camera, and then as a result, we need to catch a different angle of the icon. And in this case, we are going to go to we're going to use a rotational. So I'll show you what we will do. Maybe not this one, but really what we want is we want to take something like this video, right, guys? And kind of right around this part of the video, for instance. Right here, right? Say this thing is, the head is spun about looking dead straight at the camera. This is probably an easy way to capture this. I'll show you right now how to capture this particular angle and import it into GIMP in order to begin our big process. Alright, with that said, I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this project here. And open up a new one. Oh, let's have a look here. How come, what's going on here? Control W is not working. Discard. Alright, let's continue. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to open this base image that I had downloaded earlier, right? Whoops. I'm going to open this up. And at the same time, I'm going to show you guys how we're going to capture this, alright, on this screen here. And then I'll quickly switch my screen back to GIMP. For now, alright, so there's two different ways to do this. One relatively easy way, let's see here. And one thing that there's a problem here, there's a bit of a shadow because of the player. But, you know, we're cutting the neck off anyway. That's not going to be a problem. Again, there's other ways to, of course, download this video, guys. One way to do it is you may notice that if you try to right-click the video on OpenSea, you don't get any dialog box. However, there is an extension. There's an extension known as JavaScript Blocker. And if you were to enable it, this disables JavaScript. And check this out. With JavaScript disabled, I can right-click the video and click Save Video As. This is one of the easiest ways to rip the videos from OpenSea, guys. Just disable JavaScript. There's a plugin for Chrome called Disable JavaScript. There's one easy way to do it. And this is one easy way to just right-click the video and save it. So now you can see I have the video saved here. And let's open it, and you can see now it opens in my video player. And from here, you know, there's several ways to do it, you know. And one of those ways is really just print screen. If you guys know the print screen shortcut on your keyboard, pressing print screen is one way to capture this image right here. Alright, I just press print screen on my keyboard. Print screen on my keyboard. Jesus. And here we go. And you can see after going back to GIMP and hitting paste, Control V with my keyboard, I've pasted in the screenshot from the video player. And I got this head here, right? So I'm gonna press Control S to scale it down. Do what I think is roughly matching the size of the head on screen. Right, guys, Shift S. I'm going to press M, shortcut for move, to move this item over his head. And this just gives you an idea. This is how we've pasted this particular image in, and then I'm going to proceed to crop it out. But in the meantime, before I get too far ahead of myself, what I really want to do is locate this guy's wallet and see if maybe we should be working with his one of his icons, right? He owns an icon. Should we not be photoshopping with one of his? Here we go. I'm gonna certainly look this one up. Let's see here. He's part of the family. He's S.Curry. Gotcha. Alright, so I know how to find this dude. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hit S.Curry. Oh yeah, I should probably re-enable my JavaScript if I want this to work. S.Curry. Let's go look this guy up for just a moment, guys. Let's see. So this is Mr. Stephen Curry himself, the gentleman, NBA superstar. That we're trying to kind of, well, we're going to give it some value-added services by way of today's tutorial, and maybe feature two of his icons. So here's the two icons he kind of owns. Not bad, but they don't rotate yet, so I can't take a dead-on shot with them. But shoutouts to Stephen Curry. It's S.Curry, I think, on OpenSea. This is him, and he picked up two fresh ones. This one's really cool because it's got the diamond chain here. That's pretty dope, right? Alright, but with that said, that's not going to work. That's not going to work right now for what we want to do, because today's tutorial is about grabbing a still that's kind of like dead on from the front. So what I want to do is let's find something that might match the guy's colors, and I have something in mind. So here is what I'm thinking of. We are going to go to which one would it be? It's going to be eyes, face, hat. It's hat. Yes, it's going to be under hat. And we're looking for sport headband. Yep, this is it. Colors on this is going to be suitable. And I'm thinking maybe a more exotic material for this job. So let's see if we let's go with something like robotic, bronze, maybe gold, and let's see here. This is all of them, really? There's only 7 sport headbands amongst some of these higher tier materials. That's impressive. Alright, so which one should I go with? I kind of like this one. This is bronze, is it not? Or is this gold? Sometimes it's hard to tell them apart. Bronze. Indeed, this is a bronze, as I thought. And, I don't know. Would this be better for him? I could capture him dead on. Or I could try to, this part of this is a proposition, right? I want to tag our boy here on Twitter, right? And I want maybe the gold. We want the gold headband in there, right? Ask him if his pockets are deep enough. I mean, I think they are. He is like an NBA superstar. I'm sure for him, this is none of these are on the open market, but nonetheless, I would like to proposition him with this tantalizingly cool-looking icon. Is that or I hit him with the robotic, right? Any of these robotics for sale? This one is. Do I hit him with this one? Which one do I roll with? I'm kind of inclined to go with this bronze. Or do I want to go with the Cyclops gold? Alright, let's maybe roll with gold. Let's roll this back a couple frames. See this right here? I just froze the frame over the head here. And I'm going to capture this head right here, and I'm going to show you guys another trick, excuse me, for capturing these heads here. Let me just double check. Are we good here on audio? Yes, we are good. All right. Here's a good way to capture the heads. Another shortcut, other than print screen on your keyboard, is something where you can press Windows key, Shift, and S at the same time. And when you do, this comes up, and then you can drag a neat little box kind of like this over this. You see that? I just captured that and that image is now in my clipboard. I come back to GIMP and I drop it in there. What do you know? This image is here. You press M for the move shortcut and you start moving it into position, and you can see that this is going to work really good. So let's get to work, but before I do, I really need to change my graphics settings here. There we go. That's better. And let's double check how everything looks on the, yep, everything looks good here on voice chat. Alright, big shout out to everybody in general. A little reminder, we are live. Alright, let's continue. So, at this point, we're going to cover a little bit of what we've already done before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it today as I did in the previous episode. So this next part is going to be a bit of a recap, of course, right? I presume you guys already watched the first video and, you've begun to become familiar with GIMP, and you kind of know that your toolbox is over here on the left and your layer selections over here. Sometimes these things can be on different sides of the screen, of course, so you customize your toolbox layout. Alright, let me get a sip of water here. Let's just... And let's continue. So, now that we have dropped in this still frame from the video, we can proceed to clipping out the background. And one of the ways I do this is I use this magic fuzzy select tool, I think is what it's called. The shortcut is the letter U on the keyboard. And as in the first video, there is this little option here under tool options for this tool. This is the threshold, right? And this thing you're going to manipulate to get a good sample of the exterior. In this case, this is a very nice contrasty exterior-interior. And so let's try this at 25 and clip the gray section, because we are trying to delete the gray section of this, and you can see with the tolerance at 25 it has managed to clip in and selected part of the headband, which is not acceptable. We got to maintain the headband, so let's drop the threshold dramatically to like 5 and click the gray section again, and this time you can see it's done a pretty good job of, with the threshold at something low like 5, it's done a good job of selecting mostly the gray background and not really conflicting too much with this section here, right? So, looking good. Now, what I do from here, right? Now what you want to do, you can of course just press delete from here because you selected the gray section and delete it, but you're left with this gray halo. What you want to do from here, here's a nice trick to clean this little cut out, right? You go to the select tools, and what I like to do from here is use grow. There's something that says grow. You click this grow option here, and let me just double check. Is this showing up? Oh man, this doesn't. Okay, let me turn this on here. All right. You see this grow option here, of course, and usually growing by 2 to 4 pixels is sufficient. So watch this. I'm going to press 2 pixels, right? And it obviously grows the selection out by 2 pixels. Now it's bidden in just a touch into now the surface below, which is fine, right? Because we want to kind of trim this area here. Now, in order to soften this, in order to bring it out a little bit, there's another tool you use, and it's this one here, and it's called feather. All right, you're going to choose the feather option, and feather by a similar 2 to 4 pixels. All right. Now you'll press OK, and the difference with the selection will not be immediately noticeable, but when you press delete, it's gonna make this a softer cut across these two edges. So I'm going to go ahead and press delete, and now I'm going to press select none to kind of cancel this entire selection business, and you can see it's in a nice soft job of clipping it, right? It's not overly pixelated the way it would be if you didn't do it a little earlier. So just a couple little tools there to kind of clean that up. Now, as you can see, because the way we selected, we have a bunch of excess here, which is fine because we're trimming most of the neck down. If we take a look and hide this layer, you can see he's got a high collar here. So much of the neckline we're going to be erasing anyway, and therefore I'm just going to take the select tool and select this lower part of the collar and delete it for now. You know, I can probably go even a little higher, but maybe I'll just leave that bit there. Alright, now I'm going to use the move tool, move this thing into position, and now I'm going to use the scale tool, which is Shift S, or about here on the keyboard. And using the scale tool, I'm going to bring the size of the head down to try to match roughly this guy here, right? And another trick, of course, I demonstrated in the first video is about lowering the opacity to about 50% of the head layer, right? The icon layer. And kind of using it to help you guide the nose and the eye and the mouth section and the chin and all that as your reference. You can already see this head is still much too big, so we're going to have to press Shift S again, and here we go. Scale down just a touch more. What do we got? Alright, you can see it's much tighter now to the head. I think this fits a little better. His nose is kind of in the right area. The chin kind of fits the guy's beard here. So this is proportioned fairly well. Probably on a touch bigger side, but nonetheless proportioned decently well to the head here. Hold on one second. What am I looking at here? Oh my god, when did I draw this line in? Jesus. Must have had the paintbrush out at some point. Weird. Alright, let's keep going. Let's scale the head down one last time. And here we go. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'd say that fits the guy proportionally. Now, if you want to simulate, you see how the eye doesn't quite line up? His head's a little tilted. There's another option here. It's called Shift R, rotate. It's over here in the toolbox. The rotate tool, if you use it and click on it, you can see you can begin to rotate the layer. And here we're rotating the layer, and I'm giving the head a bit of a tilt, right? So make it look a little more natural. We're not exactly capturing the exact head here, but why not? Let's throw a little rotation at it, right? Slight tilt to the head will make it look all right. I think at this point this is spot on. The positioning is solid. All right, now here's what I'm going to do. Now we can begin. Now that we've left the original body intact, we are going to have to start removing the face in order to make room for the new head. This is something I showed in the first video, guys. This is, of course, using the Resynthetsizer plugin, which begins, of course, by selecting the base layer. So we select the base layer that has this particular part of the image on it. All right, with this selected, Let me see here. Yes. Go to my tool options. Make sure I'm in the normal select mode here. And now we're just going to have a nice, with a generous border, we're just going to use the select tool to select mostly the head. This area we're going to go tight. We want to preserve the shirt, but cut tightly into this part right here. Alright, beautiful. You press enter to close the lasso, and his head is nicely selected. And this is where we go to filters, enhance, and heal selection. Alright, let's press that. Alright, you can see it's done a remarkable job of deleting the head with almost no work at all. We have a little bit of an anomaly here where it's patterned in some of the neck here, but that's no problem really because, well, the head's going to come in right over that section as well. So we're mostly okay. If this is going to, of course, be distracting or hard to work with, we can, of course, select maybe this area here. I'm going to do something nice. I'm going to use the circle selection tool. I'm going to select out a nice little circle here, and I'm going to run the Resynthetsizer filter over it again. And you can see it's kind of cleaned it up again as well. I'm going to also select this area and run the tool over one more time, see if it does a better job of cleaning it up. There we go. Alright, that might be a little better to work with. I can live with that. And in the meantime, it's time to bring the other layer back in. This is, of course, where we begin to blend the head into the new body. This is roughly what we're working with, right? This is already looking not bad if you were photoshopping on your phone or something, but you know, we're using GIMP here. We got some powerful tools at our disposal. So next thing I'm going to do is choose the eraser, right, which is shortcut Shift E on your keyboard, and I'm going to up the size on it while using the tools here, right, the tool options here, and you can see I'm going to begin kind of running around the exterior edge, kind of doing a rough one pass. I might press Control Z and redo that. His neck starts pretty early there. Alright, now I'm going to turn the opacity down one more time, right? So now I make the guy transparent, but I'm still going to work on the same layer. And I'm going to use this guide because really the collar, as you guys can see, runs really right through here, right? So we want to remove almost everything up until the shirt. And this way, the only thing that's exposed is the gold skin neck to below, right? Neck? Yeah, that's what I meant to say. All right, let's. So here's what I'm going to do. For this option here, the brush can be pretty big. I am going to lower it a bit. I'm going to make it down to, like, say, 28 here. But what I will do is I need to up the hardness. I like, for this pass here, I do like to have the hardness up to like 95, and the force can be also close to 90. And yeah, I like to make a nice pass like this, and with the hardness settings around 90 means you can get pretty tight to the edge of the shirt, and it should blend this area just about right. Alright, this is a little bit of a trick that I'm sure you will master once you've swept enough times through this thing. Alright, now you see what I've done here. I must have, with the transparency low, I wasn't really observing where the neck was, and I've cut way too far. Let's press undo, and let's try our luck at making another pass. Alright, second attempt, let's do this. Here we go. You know, realistically, guys, how much time can we be spending photoshopping one meme? Not too much time at all. And here we go. Alright, we just got to be a little careful here because of the way the head meets the top of this guy's shirt right here, right? So we got to do like a nice little blend job. You got to kind of tuck the neck in here, maybe like this, for it all to kind of make sense, right, guys? Doesn't have to be perfect because by the time you zoom out, I think we took too much off here. By the time you zoom out, it ends up looking like $1,000,000, right? Don't mind the close details, but hey, once you're working up close and you're minding these details, the end result is one that's pretty good when you do in fact end up zooming. Alright, so at this point we're looking good. We've pretty much accomplished most of what we've seen in the first video. And in this case, this looks good. And we've, of course, picked up a little bit of a trick here. We've started, of course, with a still taken from here, right? This is not just your ordinary PNG, transparent background image you downloaded from your control panel on the official website. This is more than just that. This is, of course, the video capturing a good angle, right, guys? So your imagination can run a little more wild, if you do want to do a little more with your image, with the video. You can capture other angles that let you do other memes. You can have a lot more creative memes when you have 360 degrees of angles to work with your head. All right, so in this case, we kind of did an all right job, but realistically, when I really look at this, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. This doesn't look perfect, and therefore I need to kind of clean up the head here. And so I'm just going to do this section one more time. Now if you hold shift, here's a little trick that I just used there. If you hold shift with your keyboard, do you see how this drives this line? That means it'll sweep that direction laid out across the line, and so you can kind of cut straighter lines when you're using some of these tools. In that case, I just did that to fix up the neck. All right, enough minor things. Got a tattoo there. Might want to preserve that. So here's where we're going to bring in the next stage of this, and we're going to go back to the main layer because we need to start coloring in this gentleman's hands, his arms. The exposed skin has to be turned gold for this effect to really be at its best. So here is one way I like to do this. Let me show you. Alright, so here's a little trick I picked up, and part of what makes this effect look good, at least I hope it will. Let's give it a shot this time. We've got to use the Smudge Tool, and we're going to use the Smudge Tool early. The Smudge Tool, of course, shortcut on the keyboard is S, and we are going to increase the brush size a little bigger. And how big, you ask? In this case, about to this, 80-ish, maybe 100-ish. Yeah, about here. The brush size has got to be about this big. No, maybe too big. We can make the arms in 2 passes. I'll demonstrate what we're trying to do here in just a second, guys. Alright, brush. We'll get the brush to do about this sweep here. Alright, want the brush to be just about big enough for the arm. And we're going to want to lower the opacity, let's say to 40-ish. And the hardness has to definitely come down to 50-ish. These settings like this right here. Alright, let me just double check if everything looks... boy, this is tough. 1 second, guys, bear with me. Alright, here we go. 1 second, let me just make sure that some of this is in frame, which it is. Alright, wonderful. Alright, so with my settings as such, I'm now going to use the Smudge Tool to sort of blur the arm. Alright, we're not going to make a drastic change here, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to remove a lot of this like skin-like detail, right? Because we're going to color this in with a smoother bronze color, or gold in this color. My apologies. Gold color. We don't need what basically looks like hairs and other details, right? So I use the Smudge Tool to kind of smudge and blur and smooth the skin out, and so that's what I'm going to do right now, guys. And by lowering the size and making it about the size of the appendage that you're working with, it gives you you don't have to make too many passes, okay? Because if you make too many passes, you end up smudging too much. So I try to basically set it to one size. I make 1 or 2 passes, and that's really all it needs, and that's really all you're seeing me do here. I'm smudging this with things set at pretty low settings just to smooth the skin out. And you can see that just by smoothing the skin out, I'm already giving it the effect of the smoother, more polished skin. And it's the same thing with this hand here. You can kind of run gently. Here I wouldn't even smudge. I would just gently click. You want to lower the brush size again to kind of match what you're smudging. And I'm going to just give a couple gentle clicks to these appendages here. Same with this palm over here. I'm just going to click this a few times in and around here. As you can see, it's kind of smoothing that out. I'm going to lower the size of the brush again. And I'm just going to gently click a little bit along the finger. Alright? can kind of I'm not doing so much dragging here as I am just clicking in place over several spots, and it just kind of gently smudges and blurs things together. Alright. Do some of his fingers like this. Alright, now this smoothing does go a long way for completing this effect. Alright guys, there we go. Alright, just click in place, not too much smudging, just plenty of clicking in place to do the effect. Alright, wonderful. That should more or less do it. Alright, here comes the fun part. We still got to change and recolorize these arms from here. We're barely getting started. Alright, here's one way to do it. See, there's this, you have a great deal of selection tools at your disposal. What do they call it? The fuzzy select tool. Shortcut, of course, on this thing is U. Is something one of your best bets. So let's try this thing with low threshold. Let's see how much skin it selects. Not a lot at once. Let's up the threshold. See how good we can get it at selecting the arm. But you can see, because the color of the arm along this spot here starts to resemble the color of the background, this is kind of tricky for this tool to try and pick up. But as you can see, I'm doing a decent job along the darker part of the arm with the tool set at 27. And another trick, of course, is you hold Shift, right, which sets the tool to additive. And I'm now adding to this selection here by clicking here, for instance. See, now I've clicked there, and it's managed to actually do a good job. Now it's gone much too far. So what I have to do for this final click, so I've managed to select most of the hand relatively cleanly, using the select tool with the threshold finely tuned. I was able to so far get to this point with just 3 clicks. Alright guys, which is what you're kind of hoping for, because anything else is going to require like delicately rendering every little corner. It's good to kind of run the threshold up and down very finely on this threshold tool to kind of gently select every area a little bit at a time. So at this point, I'm going to lower the threshold to make it nice and tight so it doesn't accidentally select any more of this light space. And you can see even with the threshold at 18, it's still jumping and selecting far too much. I'm going to hit undo, and I'm going to lower the threshold a little more. Alright. Now you can see it's doing a better job. It's not escaping the area, so I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm just going to keep clicking this general area, and you can see it's not jumping outside of the arm and hitting the background. It's just kind of sweeping a little more. We can take a little look here and do the same with these couple patches here. Alright. And I'm just holding Shift and repeatedly clicking with the tool selected, with the threshold selected this low. And you can see it's done a decent job of not selecting too much of the background. And now we can have just the rest of the hand to work on. So not a bad job at relatively quickly doing a good job of grabbing all of this. Now let's keep selecting here. I'm going to hold Shift and just repeatedly click around. Taking a while, so I'm going to up the threshold a little bit. There we go, threshold up just a touch, and you can see it's doing a good job at selecting most of the hand. And we're just going to keep holding Shift and repeatedly clicking until we feel like we've got most of the hand and it hasn't accidentally jumped out of what we're rendering. But we're on a good roll so far with the setting currently at 13. It's doing a good job of staying inside the lines of the hand, not jumping far outside the hand. Even this thumb here, which is super light, it's managed to stay inside with the settings set this way. This area could use a little more uplift, so I'm just going to kind of click around the edge while holding Shift. Still holding Shift to keep adding, right? Whoops, I just messed up the angle. Let's just click this and press reset. Alright, we're still going to hold Shift and click around a little more. Alright, done a really good job. This arm is really well selected. Let's fix up the finger a little more over here. And you can see it's done a good job. Whoops, you can see now I clicked a little too far. It selected a bunch of yellow space here, which we don't want. I'm going to go back. Alright, that's it. I don't know how much more detail I can put into this. This is good enough for what's going to be zoomed out and viewed from a great distance. It's probably not worth too much detail, but maybe just a little bit more. Let's get these fingertips done in here. And you can see the fuzzy select tool did a great job of this man's right arm, right? Right on point. Let's keep it rolling. Using the fuzzy select tool, I'm going to up the threshold a little more so the arm gets done quicker. Let's keep clicking. Let's click over here. Oops, too far. Yep. All right, so it's done a good job. Selected most of the hand. Brilliant. Again, I'm always holding shift for the tool to be temporarily in its additive state, because all along, every click I'm doing here is additive, right? We're constantly building up a bigger and bigger selection. So you can either leave your tool permanently in additive for this section, which I guess you should be doing, but I generally just hold shift, which temporarily puts the tool into its additive mode. And let's see here. I'm going to lower the threshold a little bit and start doing this part of the scan. See, it's still too aggressive. Let's lower it to 5. All right, much better at 5. Now we're going to do some detail work with the select tool. Lower it to 5. Much more sensitive. And here we go. All right, this section I'm going to up the threshold a little bit. The hand needs a little more detail work. Here we go. Whoops, too much. Let's go back a few. I'm going to press undo a bunch of times. I got to lower the threshold a bit. As you can see, guys, it's a constant jumping back and forth of lowering the threshold, upping the threshold a couple pixels, just to make clicking around not take forever. You want to be able to click and get large swaths accurately at a time, which we've managed to do here. Other cutout methods can surprisingly take a lot of time. This is probably one of the fastest ways to do this, despite how long it's still taking. Alright, here we go. I think we are good. I think I've clicked around enough. Maybe I gotta up the sensitivity just a touch more. And there we go. Alright, this finger's being stubborn. Whoops, too much selection here. Alright, looking good. Oops, too much selection again. Alright, here's what I'm going to use some manual action. So I'm going to use this tool, the free select tool. And again, using the additive shift select, I'm going to manually pick up some of this really difficult to get fragmentation. Alright, see that? A lot of that stuff was just picked up. Same with this. You can quickly draw boxes over segments that are just being stubborn to capture, like this one here. Gonna capture that. I might even clean up the fingertip a little bit. Alright, this might do fine. You know, I don't want to be too particular about it. I'm going to use it to deselect some garbage here. If you press Control, that modifies it into subtraction, opposed to holding Shift and getting addition, right? Alright, here we go. That's good. I think we mostly got this on lock. Alright. His hands have been selected, guys. This took some time, but it was quite the job. Here's another trick I will teach you guys. This is hella handy. This is more advanced too, but still, it's so simple. How could I not show you this? Go to the select on the top left, and over here you can see there's an option at the very bottom that says to path. Alright, you click to path, and you know what happens? You go to your paths tab right here. See this selection here? What this means is that even if you lose your selection, so I'm going to press select and none. I'm going to deselect this entire section. Check this out. You see this little highlight that comes up when I toggle this view on this thing? I can right click this thing, this selection under paths that I just wrote to, and I can click path to selection among many other options, which I'm not going to bore you with right now. And what did I just do? I just restored this selection. This is a great way if you just spent the last 30 minutes like I did painting this selection over something very intricate. At this point, there might be times where you might want to cancel out of this and then restore the selection a little later. It's very handy to save the selections themselves into a path, right? And in order to do that, like I said, guys, you go to select, to path, and the current path that's selected gets sent to the pathways directory here. All right, very neat little trick. Let's leave this selection on and continue to the next step, which is, of course, going to the colors section here by the title bar and going down to Hue and saturation, yes, hue and saturation. Let me just double check if everything's good. Oh yes, I'm going to turn this on for this part. This is the hue and saturation menu here, right? This is this thing, and so what are we doing here? Oh yes, of course. So we are going to adjust the hue, the lightness, and the saturation. These three options together will kind of change how light and dark this thing is, and its color, its basic color tone. So let's get into it. We're making the color gold, so we're going to add some saturation because it definitely needs more color, right? It needs a deeper color, and you can see that this has turned the existing color much brighter, in this case orange. So orange is close, but not close enough. How about that? A slight tweak toward yellow on the hue slider here. You can see hue will take you through every color imaginable. Alright, we can replicate a lot of cool things, guys. The sky's the limit for your imagination. But in this case, we are, of course, replicating gold. And therefore, let's see if we can't get the gold right. Alright, here's another trick, guys. The selection, yes, this floating selection highlight can be hella distracting. So like in the first video I showed you, you can go to View and temporarily hide this by clicking Show Selection. The shortcut is Control-T on the keyboard. And now I still have this selected. I still have the arm selected, but that's annoying. Fuzzy exterior is not there. It makes it easier to kind of dial in when you're really trying to get you're trying to give this thing a good eyeballing. When you dial in the color, it helps when that thing is not there. So let's get back into it. I'm going to get into the yellows now, and I'm going to try to find, I guess I don't have to be perfect, but I'm going to try and find the right kind of yellow for this. And I'm going to try to dial it in. So now I'm going to use the lightness to kind of darken them, because it certainly has to be darker. Probably, does it need less saturation? Probably needs a little less saturation. Again, guys, this is going to require your own finesse, your own handiwork. But for now, I think I'm close. This right here I think is close. I'm going to up the lightness. It looks too dark, right? Alright, upping the lightness, too bright. This looks about right. This looks good. This setting here looks good. Let's see, does it need less color? Nah, it needs more color. Let's take a look. Yes. This looks pretty good here for color range. Alright, so I'd say I'm pretty happy with how I would consider this to match his the gold on his face, but we're still hardly done, guys. I just want this to be roughly the right color, which is I think what we've achieved here. This is roughly pretty close, excuse me, roughly pretty close to what we want. I'm just going to take a sip real quick. Alright, so we've mostly gone to where we want. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to fill in a little more of this texture. And bear with me 1 second while I do that. And I'll show you how I do this. I'm going to have to bring in another gold texture. I have to bring in some gold skin. Let me show you guys. Bear with me 1 second. Alright, hold on. So this is gold, right? Yes, this is gold for sure. Do I have a gold icon to work with? Maybe I have to download one. Alright, so here's another way to do this. So, alright. Watch what I do over here, guys. So I'm going to go back to the back to this video that we ripped the freeze frame from, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a still where I can get a lot of gold out of it. Something like this here. And yeah, you know, something like this will be good, I suppose. Let's just try to work with this. And what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to press Windows key, Shift and S at the same time to get the snapshotter out. And honestly, I can go even. I'm going to do the same thing again. I can go much tighter. In fact, because I'm just sampling the gold right now, I really just need this. So now that I've copied that using that tool to my clipboard, I'm going to hop back into my GIMP here, and I'm going to press Control V to paste. And you can see I pasted in that copy. Now why am I doing this, guys? Is because I need a little more gold to sample with. In fact, I'm going to press Shift S in order to expand this a little bit. I know this is going to kind of de-render it a little bit, but that's okay. Alright, so check this out. So now I have some gold to work with here. And the reason I do this, guys, and what I'm going to do, I'm also going to bring this up a layer so it kind of, I'm going to up this a layer so it sits up here. Let's see here. See how right now, if you look on the right side, actually, let me just fix this real quick. On the right side here, guys, you see my layers, and it says floating selection. It hasn't. I've dropped this item in, but it hasn't quite pasted into the layer bar yet. You do have to right-click it and choose to new layer to drop this thing onto its own individual layer. Yes, sometimes things are not actually pasted into the layer section until you right-click them and send them to their own layer after paste like that. And so in this case, I have pasted it in, and I'm going to move it up to the very top layer because I kind of want it to sit on top of everything. Certainly this guy's head. And so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to go over to the clone stamp tool, which of course its shortcut is C. And there's an option down here. You have to check in. See where it says sample merged? By checking this, it's going to sample when you drop a sample tab. I showed you guys how to use the clone stamp. Of course, in the first video, you hold control with the clone stamp to drop a sample, right? This is where this little circle drops is roughly what you're sampling. If you have sample merged selected, it will sample off of not just the layer you're working with, but any layer that is visible. And so for this section, you do need to have this enabled, sample merged. Alright, now with that enabled, I'm going to up the size. And again, kind of when I showed you guys how to blur the arm, we're doing something similar here. So you want to up the size of your brush, right? So I'm going over here to brush size for the clone stamp tools, right? Clone stamp has tool options, one of which is size. So I'm going to up the size to kind of roughly match the arm here. Alright, something like this. Yes, this will work nicely. It'll allow me to do a part of the arm. Something like 90 will allow me to do part of the arm. With the hardness set to, yeah, around 50s. These two options set kind of around the 50 range should do nicely. And the opacity somewhere around here. Well, we're going to experiment, guys. Again, a lot of times these things require some experimentation with the options, so let's try it set like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample part of the gold here. Alright, so as you can see, I've dropped a sample right here. Okay, so here's actually, I have to be actually relatively strategic about this. So how do I actually paint in these arms? You can see if we really take a closer look at his arm, if we were to break it down in terms of color, we can see that this part here is kind of shaded, right? This is a dark part of the arm, it has more of a shadow landing on it. Same with about here. This is definitely the light side of the arm. So when I'm going to sample and clone texture from this onto this, I'm going to sample darkness, like say over here. See the dark section below the headband here? I'm going to sample this to help draw some of this in. And then I'm going to sample something light, like maybe the cheek here, or even the super light spot here, to help me do some of the very lighter details on the rest of the arm, guys. So I hope that kind of makes sense with what comes next. So very quickly, you can see I'm going to click somewhere around here in this dark section, you know, somewhere around here. And I'm just going to kind of, also, let me just double check something. Here's something else we have to do. Good thing I kind of reminded everyone of this part. Before we continue, in order to make drawing much easier through this section here, you're going to want to return to that selection. So once again, remember that pathways folder thingy I mentioned here, this pathways tab? Yes, the pathways tab. In order to pull it up, if you don't see it, you got to go to Windows here and go to dockable dialogues, and somewhere here you'll find paths. They rest here. Alright, you can see paths. If you click it here and you don't already have it open in your toolbox, it will appear there. Find the paths, find that selection we saved earlier, because guess what, we need it again. You're going to right click it and you're going to click path to selection. You see how the arm has been reselected inside the selection again, especially now that my view Control T show selection is enabled again. Why this is important? Well, now when I'm painting with the clone stamp and my stamp overlaps the arm into the background, well, it's only painting inside the selection, right? This prevents me from having to be very careful and paint inside the line because, well, the line is the selection that you're able to work with and nothing more. So once again, let's begin. I'm going to clone this dark spot here, and I'm just going to start clicking around. But before I do, actually, I have to make sure I'm working with the right layer. In order to do that, you got to pick the bottom layer, of course, this one here, you know, the one with the guy's actual arm. Yeah, that one we're working with. So you got to make sure the light layer is always selected when you're beginning to paint on it. And finally, I'm going to begin painting on it. All right, now with my settings really, really low, you can see that it's hardly making any difference, but I'm just kind of clicking repeatedly, and this is a very light airbrushing. All right, guys, I'm not dragging so much so that I'm constantly sampling this section, but believe me when I say we are currently filling this in with gold texture, and you can already see after several clicks we've officially slightly changed the darkness, because this is still a fusion, because the opacity for this tool is so low. It's not fully painting in what's there, right? This is slightly airbrushing over it, and that's really all we need to accomplish, because once again the arm is already kind of colored the right way. We just got to give it a little bit of texture or color from the sample here, transmit it onto this using the clone stamp and some later settings, as you can see, and that gets most of the job done. Alright, I'm happy with how I've colored in the dark side of the arm. Let's select something a little lighter. I'm going to clone this cheek here, and here I actually am going to brush, right? And you can see on the right side the stamp itself is moving, the sample, because when you click and drag, the sample follows it. I'm going to go just high enough so that it meets the visor and nothing more. I'm going to click down here and give it another pass. Good. And now with this later part of his arm, I'm going to resample, I don't know, maybe over here. Right, something like this, guys. And, you know, if anything, I've kind of gone a little too aggressively. I probably should have used slightly later settings, but I do, for the sake of brevity, want to make this kind of brief to the point. This looks pretty decent for what was basically 2 passes of the clone brush. Okay, guys. It has given it some texture. Now, what I in general will do, guys, I will spend a little more time, of course. I will go back a bit, right? And what I will do is I will use lighter settings, right? If you're ever in doubt, just keep lowering the settings, make it lighter and lighter, and just make more passes and take your time. So in this case, I will lower the opacity a touch more. I will lower some of the settings a little more, including the size of the brush. And I'm gonna try it one more time. And of course, you know, there's a lot of details here, and so as you can see, there's, you know, there's highs and there's lows to the color band that makes up this guy's arm. And if you want to be very detail oriented, you can spend a lot of time kind of synthesizing this arm with a new color profile. That is gold. But with that said, guys, I'm just going to keep it simple, and so I'm just going to give this another shot, and I'm going to kind of change up the size, and I'm going to change up the opacity and some of the other settings to replicate this. Now with other ones, for instance, something that's more textured like concrete, guys, or the robotics, because they have like a very defined texture, you actually have to work with a higher opacity, and you have to stamp almost less. It's hard to explain. Maybe I'll do a separate video on how to do something like concrete and robotic texture, because those are fundamentally a little different because of the detail in their pattern over relative to gold, for instance. But for now, we're working with gold, so let's keep the ball rolling here, guys. I'm going to do the hand now. So once again, I'm going to try and sample, I don't know, let's try to grab something else in the arm to do the arm with. So I'm going to sample this part of the neck here. And as you can see, I'm just going to use this to lower the size of the brush to match more of the hand. And I'm just going to kind of do a bit of this, guys. What can I say? The arm's selected. I airbrushed. I'm just using this section here, sampling a bit of the gold, and I'm airbrushing a bit of that gold over the man's existing arm. If I need to simulate some darker spots, I will use, I'll sample a darker part of the gold neck here, and there you have it. I have officially painted this man's arm gold. Alright, so next up is going to be the right arm. I'm going to select none to kind of cancel this entire selection. I'm going to enable my move tool using the M button. And whoops, moving the wrong layer. Let's pick the head, the selected head here. Yes, the one we're using to sample the gold from. Let's grab him using the move tool and move him to the left a little bit. Perfect. Let's reselect the bottommost layer, the one that has, of course, the arm that we're about to work with. Let's select that one. And now let's go back to paths one more time, and we got to select this path. Remember this path? Right-click, path to selection. It re-enables the selection around the arm and lets us work again in this general vicinity. I'm going to choose my clone tool again by pressing C on the keyboard. And just like the other arm guys, I'm going to sample, let's see here. So this interior here is dark, this is a little dark, this section's dark. So let's start with the dark area. I'm going to sample right here. And I'm going to just start drawing in a little bit of darkness. Alright. Yep, this is it. We're just painting a little bit, and you see with the settings really, really light, you can make several strokes, you can make several passes, and it barely airbrushes anything on because it, you know, the settings are very light, but it does after enough strokes begin to brush it in, and that's it. So I've just done a bunch of the dark sections, and I'm pretty content with how that looks. All right, so now I'm going to choose a slightly lighter section. Let's go to the cheek here, and let's see if we can't fill in the cheek. You know, right here I can already tell it's getting a little too aggressive, so I'm going to go to Tool Options, and I'm going to lower the opacity a touch more. And I'm just going to start painting him in like this. Right, I'm going to sweep some of the lighter areas. You see, I'm just kind of giving it 1, 2, 3, 4 strokes here and there with some of the lighter stuff sampled, and it's looking pretty good. Let me see here. I'm going to sample maybe one more area. I'm going to sample this light section here on the neck, and I'm going to do some lighter features on the fingers here. Alright. I'm also going to grab, now to give it like a couple odd reflective streaks, what I like to do is I up the opacity a bit. Let's say we go up to 20 now, and we're going to sample this really bright reflection on the tip of his head here. And in a few spots, like a strategic spot, this looks like a bright spot. We're going to kind of draw this in. See that? Giving it kind of a bright spot there. But what I will do is I'm going to up the brush size a little bit as well. You want the brush to be a bit bigger, quite a bit bigger for this. Yes, something like this. You want the brush to be much bigger, but the hardness in the force settings now quite a bit back. And then see this light spot here on the arm? This is a good strategic spot. This looks like a good light reflective part of this guy's arm where you find a reflection like this. And this is where, check it out, very delicately with the settings like this, draw on this light spot here. That's not too bad. Again, this effect might take some trial and error to make it look right. I'm just trying to demonstrate roughly how I can do this. Some lightness here, maybe I can paint on some really reflective section. His finger here could use a little reflectivity, but I don't know how much that looks good. Let me try to do it. Something like that, right? Same with the other arm. So let's do this one more time. I should have probably done that to this other arm before I left it alone, but let's do it. Let's select this layer that we're sampling from, move it over a little bit more. Now, let's reselect this path. Let's go back to the clone tool, and let's select the forehead here. Let's get this nice bright spot on the forehead. And I'm gonna, oh yeah, I gotta select, of course, the layer to work with. And let's put a bright spot here. Let's get something like this here going. Here's a spot that we can do something bright, maybe even a little gentler than that. He's got a bit of a bright spot here. We can drop a reflective spot, maybe here, maybe not even that right last spot. Something like that, alright? And you can do that with other parts of the skin that looks good, guys. You can sample other important sections, other spots that have either important details, important reflection, or high or low spots that you feel need to be in here. But let's see if splashing a couple high reflectivity things over these kind of gave it the look that we were going for. I'm going to click select none now to hide that. I'm going to go back to the move tool, and I'm going to zoom out to kind of normal viewing zoom. You can see it looks pretty good, if I say so myself. Sure, maybe use a little work, you know, but not bad, right? Let's kind of give it one last splash. I mean, I think it's already good to print. What I'm going to do, I find we have a lot of dead zone up here. I don't know if we really need that. So I'm going to grab the selection tool, and I'm going to paint a nice rectangle over the area that I want to keep. I'm going to press enter to choose that selection and close it, so to speak. And now you can go to image and choose something that says crop to selection. This is a great way to crop, guys. You can just quickly use the selection tool to highlight the rectangle you want to keep. And then you go to image, crop to selection, and there you go. We've cropped nice and easy. Man, this does look pretty good. What can we do to kind of make it look better at this point? You know, see this here? This looks a little jaggedy. What we could do with nothing selected, we can go to this very bottom layer here, and we can choose the blur tool. Yes, you can go to the smudge tool, I should say. It's called smudge. The shortcut is S on the keyboard. And with the settings on the lighter side, with the size much smaller, something like this, we can run the smudge tool over this edge, and it just slightly softens the pixelation over the edge here. And you can see there's some artifacts, you know, artifacts like this, for instance. Like, again, guys, if you have all the time in the world, you want to do a lot of details, artifacts like this section here, you can smudge the clean here and smudge over. Now my opacity is very low, my settings are low, so this takes multiple passes, but if I crank up the features here, you can see how smudge is able to kind of work its way over certain features. Again, I probably have to turn it up a bit more. Let's turn the hardness and the force up. Alright, now it's working. Alright, so now you can see with the setting turned up, same here, right? A lot of times there's a lot of artifacting here. This stuff kind of does look ugly. This noise around the hand here looks ugly. With the smudge tool and some appropriate settings, you can see how I can grab clean parts of the image and smudge them into the pixelated part of the image, and it cleans it up, right? So I'm just grabbing clean parts of the surrounding area and smudging them into the noisy parts of the area. So just grab clean spots. This is where you click and grab, and you drag into it delicately, and with your brush settings set accordingly, whoops, you're able to clean all this up, right? Right, I can click and drag, and the smudge tool makes decent work of noisy areas. Now in this case, I'm not really going to trouble myself much longer. The video's gone long enough. I just try to give you guys some ideas on how to make this look good, right? The neck looks mostly okay. And you know what, does need a little bit of a touch up, so we're going to go select this layer here, right? This second layer here that has the head on it. We are going to select it because it currently has this bronze here that runs a little bit too far into the neckline. So I'm going to choose the eraser, and I'm going to run over this section here. I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to reset the eraser settings. The eraser needs to have its settings cranked up for the neckline here. Something like this, guys. And you can see I'm going to kind of cut a little more aggressively into the neckline of the jersey, because I can tell the neck needs just a little detail before I go tagging Steph Curry on Twitter, telling him about there's this dope gold icon you really gotta buy. It's got your name all over it and your colors, I guess. But let's take a look here. Have I done a good job here? This section's a little ugly here. This could use a little bit of work. What are we working with here? Alright, let's go back. So if I hide the icon, you can see this is another detail section sometimes you have to work with. Let's take a look here. I'm going to cut back a little bit more here. No, this is not great. This is not great, but I'm going to roll with it, and I'm going to try and fix it up in post, so to speak. Let me see here. Yep, let's dial that back a little bit. Yes. Let's dial back some of that. Here is what I'm going to try and do. Man, I don't even know if it's worth doing, but alright, realistically, what's left to do? We can go back to the base layer, we can hide the icon head. You can see there's a little bit of... You guys can see that there's a little bit of overlap here, right? When there is some... I want to have a nice clean blue stripe here, for instance. This existing skin blending into this area is no good. And same with this here. You can see there's a big splotch of skin kind of bleeding into the jersey here. This jersey should have a nice clean black line running through here. So here's where I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool with the black color enabled. I'm going to lower the size of the brush to about here. And yeah, I'm just going to paintbrush. I'm going to turn up the opacity a bit so this paints faster. Lower the brush just size a bit more. Yes, let's lower the brush size to about 3 here. And we can kind of lower these settings a bit as well. And I'm just going to manually paint this black line in here. Alright, I'm going to up the opacity a bit so it paints faster. Here we go. And I'm just going to repeatedly kind of delicately brush, stroke a black line back into this, and you can see a lot of the brown overlap is now disappearing. I need to select some white here, so I'm going to choose white color. Whoops, too much. Alright, I'm going to lower the opacity a bit because the white is very strong, and I'm going to delicately paint a little white in here. And just like that, you know, when you're working on a very low pixelated level, it's not hard to just quickly airbrush in a couple small details. And just by fixing this white and black line here around this guy's jersey is going to help a lot. In fact, I can already tell that maybe following the black line in, you can see there's already a lot of skin blurring along this line here. I'm going to finish this entire job all the way down the neck to this spot here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. It's going to benefit dramatically, guys. And, you know, so this is the advanced lesson of today. There's a way to make the transition from the neck to the collar and all that look good. It's going to require a combination of skills. This is one of them, airbrushing a little bit. Now, this black line, we're going to do the black line now. Right, so we're going to continue this black spot here. Let's take a look here. Is this painting or what happened here? What happened here? Oh yes, I lowered the opacity. That's what happened. Let's up the opacity a touch more. Alright, that's better. This black line, particularly lines like this around transition points or around collars, they certainly help the transition as well. So sometimes you need shadows in areas like this, and that's kind of what we're painting on right now. I don't know if this is the jersey or if this is just a shadow, but whatever it is, by painting a little bit of a black line through here, this will help the overall transition, I feel, when I finally put the other neck back on. Let's make 2 passes here, and that's it. Consider that painted on. One more line over here. And this jersey has been repaired. Alright, sometimes a little bit of detail work needs to be done because there can be some overlap with the skin. This is good though. Let's put the skin back on. I can already see that there's a slight issue here, so let's use the smudge tool to smudge some of this detail away here. Alright, gotta up the opacity a bit, up these options a bit. And there we go. We're gonna smudge some of this away here. Alright, that's not bad. And same with this here, some unnecessary garbage image data here. That is good. And this way when the head comes up, whoops, not that one. We put this layer back on. Some of this ugly noise that was right around where his neck is now fixed. A minor detail, guys. Probably not even worth it for this video. Well, for this, maybe not this video. This video for sure is worth it because I'm trying to demonstrate some minor tips and tricks for tonight, for the part 2 of this episode. But for this image here, probably not sure if I should have bothered. But hey, maybe I should, because I am going to tag your boy SdotCurry in this post. Let me just kind of touch up the neck a little more. I'm going to go back, since I painted that black line, right? Since we touched up the collar here, I'm going to try and now reveal some of the touch up by clearing a bit of the neckline off the gold. So let's get the eraser tool. Let's get the settings set up like so, and I'm going to go like this. You're going to see what I'm about to do. I am now clearing a bit more bronze off the bottom of the jersey. I'm revealing just a little bit of that black line that I drew in around the collar to serve as a bit of a shadowy layer, right? A bit of that shadow that I drew in around the side. We're just going to reveal a bit of that today here. Whoops, I think I went a little too far here, so I'm just going to go back. And there we go. That's not too bad. Let me deselect this layer. Okay, I can already see what happened here. Alright, I'm going to press undo a little bit. I'm going to hide this real quick, guys. I'm going to get my paintbrush out here. I'm going to airbrush this just a touch more. Here we go. And here we go. This just needs a hair more black through here. All right. Will you believe it? I'm finally satisfied. I think I've drawn in enough here, and boom. She's done. Slight bit of eraser work here, and I think I'm done, guys. I think I've demonstrated enough for one day. Do let me know, of course, in the comments below what you guys thought. This filled any extra blanks? You learned any extra new skills? I certainly hope so. Including how to get some different angles going, right? Because not everything is going to be from the 3/4 angle. So tonight we have, of course, learned, well, some new skills, how to cover something like this. You got to get a dead-on shot. Well, this is one of them. This is fit to print, guys. Before maybe I sign out, you know, I usually drop the Incognito logo somewhere in here, but I just don't know if this is really necessary. I think we're ready to roll with this. So let's go to export. As always, remember how to export in this. You go to File, Export As, and of course I am going to pick my export folder here. Let's do it. Boom. Let's drop it in this folder here. I will leave the file name as is. Leave the extension .png. Hit export, and it's done. All right, guys. How are we doing on time? About an hour in. Only took an hour to knock out some extra hot tips on how to work with GIMP. Look forward to, of course, details. I know you guys have been left hanging a little bit on the details in regards to the Photoshop contest, but I'm sure they're to come. If not, I have been busy photoshopping for the last hour. Maybe they're already in the announcements channel. If not, hang tight. I'm sure they will be provided soon, and hopefully you guys got the skills to sweep big at the next Photoshop contest. Hey man, maybe you can pick up some worthy skills along the way. It never hurts to be a Photoshop master, right? All in the name of good fun and a contest that you hopefully everybody walks away happy from. All right, enough bullshit. It's time to get out of here. Signing out. Have a good one, guys.